Okay, gentlemen, it is time for the all-important top 5 of 2021. Starting at our number 5s, this album had to be in my top 5, without any arguments.
All right.
From me, myself.
You and the dog. It's in there, Buzz. Shut it. Right, it's number 5. Don't give me that look.
My number 5 was my second most played album of 2021.
Stained. Oh, wow.
Wow.
They didn't have an album out in 2021.
Well, they had a live album out, but we don't count them.
My number 5 was Worst Doubt and Extinction.
Big David loves it.
Ooh, pretty much from the moment we got this in, I was just jamming this religiously. I think the most kind of impressive thing for me about this album is it's been made by a hardcore band from France, but they don't sound French in the slightest. If someone told me this is a new New York hardcore band, I'd 100% believed them. Wouldn't have doubted it for a second.
Quelle surprise, Dave. Quelle surprise.
Well done. This is kind of 90s hardcore, delivered with that kind of turmoil-esque streak of violence. No frills, no beating around the bush. They just let rip for 25 minutes. And although they do have like clear influences from the 90s, they do have a more kind of modern hardcore streak to their sound as well. And I think that balance, that mix of the old and new kind of gives them the edge here. Because I think it would have been really easy just for them to fire out an album of hardcore that sounds like, everyone else, but they didn't. They smeared this with their own kind of personality and ideas, and I think that's what's kept me coming back to it. There's something distinctive, something individual here that I don't get from a Turmoil album or from a Trapped Under Ice album. There's something here I just get from Worst Out. And again, another debut, which again just kind of blows my mind how the quality of this on a debut album is just ridiculous. Nothing much more to say about it. It's got a fucking killer production, great fucking riffs, really varied and kind of rhythm and pace. Sounds fucking awesome. Production is great, as I said. Check it out if you like hardcore in any kind of way. Then definitely put this on your list. Again, another one that kind of tends to be flying under the radar. Not you guys, all right? You look like you're
What?
with a stroke there.
No, I said, I agreed with you. I think it is flying under the radar.
Some sort of in-joke happening here, gentlemen.
What?
Literally agreeing with you.
Yeah.
He does this. There's a certain point where Dave goes on his period during every single fucking recording. I don't know what it is, but he just... Angry Dave comes out. It's
See
like
me
you could be in an advertisement
after
for Snickers. I swear, give him a Snickers, someone, and watch him transform to Happy Dave again. I was literally agreeing with you.
Look, watch
It's
the video
flying
back.
under
The
the
pair of your
radar.
faces look like you're about to burst out laughing.
No!
Anyway, my number 5...
Paranoid.
My number 5 is Worst Out, Extinction, and if you two see me after class, please. Duggan, what's your number 5?
I liked it. Let's phrase I liked that. Number 5, you've already mentioned it, Dave, and you made very great points, so let me just tread all over them. Every Time I Die and Radical out on Epitaph Records. Yeah, it is absolutely impossible to listen to an Every Time I Die album and then not go down the ETID rabbit hole. It has to happen, and for good reason. They're a band who consistently now for 20 years? I'm trying to think, first album's 2001, I want to say. So for 20 years have just been making amazing albums, and they get better every album. That's not to say that every album is better than the one that precedes it, because I don't think that's the case. I think specifically Radical is the best album they've put out in maybe 2. The 2 previous ones are great Every Time I Die albums, but Radical's the one where it feels like the mojo just resynced back up. It's got all that tongue-in-cheek humour that you expect from an Every Time I Die album. The riffs are just... They're riff-writing machines, that band. I love the way it's heavy, it's, it's punky, but they'll throw in these big rock hooks out of nowhere, and they always do really interesting things with the kind of time structures, the way they make the riffs link into the next riff, and they'll sometimes half it and then sometimes bring it back or add accents in a way which feels just fun. I think that's the big thing for me about Radical, is it's named perfectly. It is a fun sounding Every Time I Die album that captures all the ferocity of the band, all the stuff you want from an Every Time I Die album. It's the first one that Keith Buckley's been sober for, and if you're following them online at the moment, there's been a lot of spats that have come out from that, which I believe have been resolved. I'm kind of hoping so. Going to see them in April, so my Poppy gig's been cancelled again. Surprise, surprise. She'd never come into Scotland. I bet she doesn't know where Scotland is on a map. But like, that's cancelled again. So but yeah, like, they're coming over in April. Hopefully everyone will be able to go and see them. Hopefully he'll be in the band, because I don't think they're Every Time I Die with a different vocalist.
Yeah,
I think he is the key thing about it, and it's because he has an amazing tone. His vocals, you go back and listen to Last Night in the Town and then listen to Radical now, and you hear the growth and evolution in his voice. He's a phenomenal frontman, and when listening to this album, I can see the songs live. I think it's an absolutely fucking incredible album. It's been played. It's so Moorish. Dave mentioned 16 tracks earlier on, which does feel like it should be long, but it glides through with ease, and then you just want to listen to it again, or listen to more Every Time I Die, which I would argue is when I listen to that Cannibal Corpse album, I wanted to listen to the old Cannibal Corpse. That's the thing. When you listen to a band's new album, it shouldn't be to forgo everything they've done before. It should make you want to listen to more of them. And Every Time I Die, I've captured it perfectly with Radical. My number 5, available on Epitaph Records.
Kyle, number 5.
Mine's already been mentioned, so I'll just say what it is. It's HEIRESS, Distant Fires. Like an incredible album.
We love it, bread bold right. We fucking love you.
Goddamn right we do.
Yeah. Goddamn boat right.
Goddamn boat right.
There we are.
That's how I'm going to say it from now on. Brad, goddamn boat right.
Yep. I'm sure
if you're
they see
listening,
that
I
term
hope
in
you're
certain
okay with
parts of America. I'm sure that's how he's referred to. Right, Davey boy, as with your 4.
Number 4 for me is the mighty Cannibal Corpse and Violence Unimagined.
Spicy.
Ooh, I mean, aside from Napalm Death, is there another band that have been on the go for this long and still seem to be putting out better albums every time?
No.
Don't think so.
No. I think it's safe to say that, Dave. Actually, I thought I could throw a curveball at you. I just realised there is no curveball.
No, I couldn't think of one either. Over 30 years they've been on the go. This is album number 15. Obviously,
fuck.
The main change this time obviously being the addition of Eric Rutan, who took over from Pat O'Brien.
He's the man.
They'd worked with him in the past as a producer. He'd been playing with him live, so he knew the sound, he knew the dynamics, and he probably knew the kind of writing process as well. So it seemed like a pretty much, a no-brainer. And because of that, the transition of having him as the main, as a main member of the band, was probably kind of as smooth as it gets. And you guys have already said it, but this what we've ended up with is like Cannibal Corpse 2.0, where you've got Cannibal Corpse, that classic sound in there, but it's even more refined, even more interesting than it was before. And I think it's probably one of their most consistent albums. They don't really drop the ball on this album at all. Every track gives you something a little different. So it doesn't become like a haze, as soon as it's finished.
Yeah.
You're left with these little kind of nuggets of Cannibal Corpse banging around in your head. This is everything you'd want from a Cannibal Corpse album. I mean, out of the 15 albums I've released, I'd say this is top 3 for me easily. Quality album. And Big George, possibly the performance of his career.
I think he sounds so fucking good on this.
Yeah.
I think there's a part where you were talking about injecting new blood into something. I think what he has done is he's forced the band to not be complacent and raise their game. And I think that's important. I think that's super important. So
yeah, definitely. So that's my number 4, Cannibal Corpse, Violence Unimagined. Duncan.
You guys can have your most played albums of the year. According to iTunes, which is what I use, other services are available, my most listened to album was my number 4, which should surprise no one, which is Turnstile and Glow On. It's so easy to listen to. It's so accomplished. it's... We use the word journey a lot, and I hate using it, but it is a journey, because there is so much in here. This is like... Turnstile have made what I would argue is almost the kind of less zany kind of J-pop album. You know what I mean? That's how Japanese music will throw everything into a blender. You may have heard of this before, Dave. With all of that, now you're listening to fucking dubstep. Now it's AMSR, punk, metal, then rap, and all in one song, and it can feel a bit disorientating. Turnstile, for some reason, have a similar approach. Maybe not necessarily all in one song, but have a very similar approach to... It feels like nothing's off limits stylistically, and whatever they do, they put their own spin on that on this album, and it is probably one of the most accomplished albums I listened to this year, just across the board, in that everything just sounds perfect, like absolutely 100% perfect. They have mastered the we only need to play a chorus once in certain songs, or you get it twice, no more than that. I think that's to their credit. I think it weirdly feels like there's a lot of producer input into this, but at the same time it feels like there's not a lot of producer input in this, because to me, like, a producer would sit there and say, right, this is a great chorus and hook, right, you need to bring this back in at the end. And it feels like in their song composition, they'll do it, they'll go verse, chorus, interlude, stop. You know what I mean? They never return back to things that you would expect them to return back to. The songs get shorter and they're better for it. It is a big ball of kinetic energy that is very, very, very difficult not to like. And I know the debate rages on. I'll put my 2 cents in. This is their best album. I know some people are saying it's the previous album, which I loved. I fucking love that album. This to me is... They are one of the most exciting bands on the planet just now. And as I mentioned, and I keep stressing this, they are very fucking young to be this far into what they're doing in their career. And yeah, if you get a chance... Big Dave shared with us earlier today, you can go on the YouTubes and check out their Tiny Desk appearance, which is fucking great as well. So, I mean, it's very easy. Like, I've seen punk bands before, bands like Blink-182, where you went to see them and you're like, this very clearly sounded better in the studio. Or there's a lot of stuff happening here which is not that 3-piece band playing on stage just now. You listen to Turnstile, it's all them. Yeah. That's the key. They back up everything they do. It's a fucking incredible album. My most listened to album of last year, and it came out in the midway point, so I listened to a lot. Turnstile, Glow On, Roadrunner Records.
Nice. And Kyle, number 4.
I just realised that this band lied to me, because I went back to this album tons, and the album's called You Can't Go Back. By the band SARIN. SARIN?
SARIN, yeah.
Fucking incredible album. Like,
Canadian, weren't they?
hit of the year. Huh?
They were Canadian, if memory serves.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It's really good.
Perfect production, unbelievable songwriting. It's all that sludgy goodness that I've been super into this year. Like, it just brought it in for me. This was one of the first, I think. It was earlier on in the year, I believe. Yeah, and it was like...
First half of the year.
Yeah, definitely. And I was like, ooh, this is something I'm enjoying quite a lot. And then it carried on for the whole year. But no, I love this band. It's just they need to be more popular. They have to be pushed out further into the world because they're just fantastic in every way.
I just realised you've got a bit of a loving for Canada this year.
Yeah. Maybe we should move there. Just as cold.
It is just as cold.
Yeah.
More maple syrup. I mean,
more syrup, yeah. More friendly people.
The ability...
and there's less fish.
And the ability to apologise.
Yeah.
More.
Norwegians don't even have a word for sorry.
If that fact was true, I would be overjoyed and move there in a second. Oh, there we go. SARIN. I'd forgotten about them completely.
Really?
But they're really fucking good, man. They're really, really, really good.
Nice. Okay, top 3s.
Serious.
Serious. Top 3. So mine has been mentioned by both you guys. Is LLNN and UNMAKER. Just to add on, this is just the epitome of heaviness. I loved this on first listen, and then I found out that it was basically what happened to the members of the Psych Project after they split. I was like, wow, that's amazing. Then I find out Jacob Bredal is then producing the album. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, this guy is like fast becoming one of my favorite producers. And then it's mastered by Brad Boatwright, and I'm like, what the fuck? What's going on?
Was this album made for me? A committee of Dave voted on this.
And then I don't know if you've seen it, but they released a kind of short documentary on YouTube about how they made all the kind of like dystopian and kind of post-apocalyptic sounds for the album. And that just blew my mind.
You don't share me the most, like, Big Davey says do this. Big Davey, like, where was that link?
I fucking told you in the review, if you listened to that. Did you say you listened to that? You clearly didn't.
You undersold it. You undersold it.
Oh, so you just switched
off.
Did
you put a link? Was the link at the bottom to it?
It's on YouTube.
Is the link on you? Like, did you link it in the YouTube video? You expect? You call me a tube? YouTube? Call me a tube? Like,
there's a video on YouTube. I'm telling you that now.
I will find it,
and it shows you them making all these sounds in this fucking old fucking. It's like an ironmonger's kind of fucking room. And they're recording all these fucking crazy sounds, and then they fuck with them in kind of post-production and stuff. So really cool. And I was just blown away with everything about it, to be honest. Very organic in sound, but hugely kind of complex and very, very kind of dense sounding, as you've said. I can't imagine it'll be everyone's cup of tea, just because of how suffocating and abrasive this album can sound. But I think the depth on this album alone should be enough for you to check it out. Fucking awesome album. It's not an album that's extreme in its kind of speed, but it's got a very kind of sludgy, kind of post-metally type pace to it, but very intense musically. It feels very post-apocalyptic.
Pocahontas. Feels like Pocahontas.
Yeah, Pocahontas in there as well. I think like the term heavy metal is literally a perfect way to describe the texture of this album.
If you were to try and paint a colour scheme of what this sounds like, it's greys.
Yeah.
It's very, like greys and steel. That's literally what
very
it is.
Cold and like just a kind of monolithic album, to be honest. I don't think I heard another album like UNMAKER in 2021. It's such a unique and kind of individual sounding album. But yeah, phenomenal. Love that album. So yeah, that's my number 3, LLNN and UNMAKER. Duncan, what you got?
Right, gents, I'm going to school you with what the real top 3 should have been this year. You are forgiven. Both of yous. Oh, don't thank me then. I'm taking it back. So much. Retraction. What? I was right about this band. The first time I listened to them, Dave has finally come around to it. I'm glad he's admitting he's wrong.
Never admitted that.
Number 3, King Woman, Celestial Blues on Relapse Records.
It was a good album.
It's fucking great. Mm-hmm. Everything I wanted and more. I had heard the previous outing, and I didn't realise she was in 100 projects, which I've now listened to them all, by the way. They're all available, so go check them out. Some of them are weird. She does like electronic stuff, which is also bizarre as fuck. But yeah, I'd heard her before. I got excited when it came through. I was already kind of high on life on Relapse Records because they'd already released a few albums in the year that were very much, we're going to talk about one in a minute, very much of like a kind of high profile for me in terms of what I listened to this year. And from the moment I hit play, I adored this album and still do. I think it's textures, it's like you mentioned before, it's organic, it's smoky, the song composition is great, it's laboured, I think there's one track that maybe introduces a bit of peace, not a lot, and not for long either, but yeah, it is an album that feels like it is constantly building towards something, and that crescendo is Paradise Lost, the last track, which alongside the band I'm about to talk next had my favourite closing song of the year. It's haunting, it's very stripped back. She's a vocalist who it seems to wield a lot of power in her voice whilst not projecting at volume, if you know what I mean. A lot of what she's doing is in kind of lower whispered tones, and it works incredibly well with their sound. I love it. I think it's like I would on any given day, if you asked me from the top 3 that I have, what album I would pick up to listen to, I'd pick up King Woman first. Don't think it's the best album of the year because there's 2 above it, but it's the one that I would certainly listen to, and probably have listened to more than the 2 that are above it. I think it is. Doom's a really interesting subgenre. We've spoken about it a lot. It has like extremities that you will not believe. Go and listen to bands like Ahab, for example, and you hear the most punishing side of Doom. And then you can listen to this, a kind of more textured shoegaze. It's a great description because there are elements of it. But it's something ethereal, almost otherworldly and haunting. It's a haunting album to listen to. And authentic. Like, I believe every note that comes out, every word and every note that she sings. It is everyone spent all this year talking about how fucking great Spirit Box was, and I understand why you did it, and she is an incredible vocalist. We can't even compare them because like comparing apples and oranges. But if you want to talk about heart and authenticity, this is your female fronted metal band that you should be listening to. King Woman, Celestial Blues, Relapse Records, my number 3. Love it.
Nice. Okay.
Can't disagree with any of that. My number 3 is an album that was absolutely perfectly produced. There's nothing that was produced better this year.
Ooh.
And it was produced by I think it was the guitarist of the band. It was unbelievable. It's Old with an E. Pilgrimage. Album was absolutely just perfect in every way, and that's why I got a 5 from me. It was absolutely fantastic, and I still go back to it, and I cannot get enough of it from beginning to end. I can't listen to this one song at a time. I have to listen to the whole thing. I get addicted to it, and because I think it's their first album, I haven't found any others. I just have to keep on going and keep on going. And if it were a CD, I'd have worn it out. If it were vinyl, I'd have had to buy 4.
My favourite bit of trivia on that album is that Christopher Walken appeared in the studio and was like, I gotta have more saxophone. It's true. True story.
Fucking saxophone solo on that thing is
nuts. Saxophone
it blends
everywhere.
in so well. And
so
everyone's
good.
like, is that a guitar or a sax?
Yeah,
That's a sax.
And they clarified that. That's how awesome they are. They actually came back and was like, this is how we did it. And I was like, all right. That makes
cool.
more
Fucking
sense
hell.
than what I thought.
Thanks, guys. No, they're great. They're great guys as well. I've spoken to them a little bit afterwards, after that review, and they're really nice. They've got another band as well called Head of Jador, which is very similar. Very well produced. Absolutely. Cannot believe the production on this. It's just fucking perfect. It's like they had a vision from the start, and they built it all up, and at the end they were like, yep, done. Nothing. It's just flawless. Unbelievable. There's no fuckery. It's just, all of it is just amazing, and I'm just going, this is what metal should sound like, Or at least most genres. There are some that it's part of their sound. I'm just going to leave that there.
Hey, listen, that was 2021, Kyle, and we've left him in the last year. This is a new year.
I appear to have evolved and accepted some things about the metal scene that I might not agree with, but they're just out there. Anyway, this album's great. So yeah, that's my number 3. Old Pilgrimage. It's
Old with an E.
Old with an E. Old.
Yeah, like ye olde shop.
Ye olde shopper.
Yeah, with an E. So many E's.
So many fucking E's.
Dave, you want to give us your number 2?
Like a club in 1992.
Number 2 has been mentioned. It was not just for me, but it was one of the most kind of anticipated releases for a lot of kind of progressive death metal fans in 2021. The album was The Work by Rivers of Nihil.
Nigel.
Or
Rivers
Nigel.
of Nail.
Depends on which version you've listened to.
Crocodile shoes.
I hope they cover that song.
No. No, I really hope they don't. Don't do that. If you're listening, it was a bad idea and it's all my fault.
Yep, it was.
Yeah, the band's last album, Where Owls Know My Name, it seemed to be a bit of a hit for the band. It definitely put them on the map. So there was a lot of talk around where they were going to go with The Work. And I don't think anyone really saw this coming, because what Rivers of Nihil did was put out their most ambitious work to date. the progressive death metal fans are probably raging about it, but let them rage. This is stunning. In a lot of ways, it feels like Rivers of Nihil are actually asking the fans to do a bit of the work, like to kind of keep an open mind and give this album, an album with like huge kind of complexities, a bit of a chance. And I think once you go into this without thinking it has to sound like Where Owls No My Name Mark II, then you can fully appreciate it for what it is. And this is a band that refused to be kind of pigeonholed, and that will continue to push the envelope. The work is, without a doubt, still Rivers of Nihil, but it's very different to its predecessor. I think they've produced a very kind of cohesive album that is full of emotion. It's full of kind of groove and kind of heaviness, but it's full of soul actually as well, which isn't a word that I often use when describing a metal album, but this album has a lot of soul in spades. But don't be like fooled by that like emotion and atmosphere, because this album still has like utter brutality on it. Tracks like Dreamin' Black, Clockwork, and more are absolutely crammed with huge colossal riffs and bone-shaking grooves. So as much as this album feels very deep and reflective in places, it will also rip your head off at the same time. And I just felt like every time I listened to this, there was something else that would kind of present itself that I never caught, the last time through. There's so much on offer, so many like fascinating ideas, but it never felt like overcooked or messy. They've captured a perfect balance of kind of controlled light and shade. This is a phenomenal album, very rewarding to listen to, and it was close between this and my number one pick. It's just an album from start to finish that I can just put on and just listen to the whole thing. It's just phenomenal. I loved it. So that's my number two, Rivers of Nihil and The Work. Duncan?
My number two is what we like to describe in terms of a measurement, a ball of the number one spot. Like, my number one was locked in pretty much when I heard that, and I said it would take an act of God to stop that. And that act of God pretty much happened. And I can't stress this enough. We are talking about like measurements that cannot be visible by the human eyes as to what differentiates my number one and number two pick. I feel like if I was a cheating bastard, I would have just put them both as number one. Joint first and no number two at all. But we can't do that because Dave frowns on cheating, so let's not anger Dave, because you've seen what it's like.
Hey.
Sorry. Yeah, number two for me, a band who I like this whole year. When I say this whole year, last year. In fact, so much so I've even worn my again pinky red hoodie, because that was the colour scheme. Everything about the marketing for this band all throughout the year got me excited. Of course, the band is Moll. Nailed it. And the album is Diorama. Dave very eloquently told me on the review that it was influenced by the horror movie Hereditary, which is one of my favourite horror movies of the last 20 years. And it put a lot of that in context for what I was listening to. Kind of post knowing that, going back to it, but I'd already made my mind up on the album. Like all throughout the year they were teasing things, like those singles were coming out. There was really great kind of packages put together of short video clips and all the rest, and like you could be forgiven for saying pastel pink doesn't go with shoegazy, death gaze, or whatever we're calling them. It doesn't go with it. It doesn't go with it, and I would argue it totally fucking does. It very much does, because like the colours that I saw in the pictures with the singles I was listening to were a marriage made in heaven, and that was before I got to listen to the whole album. This album is fucking incredible, like absolutely incredible. It is uplifting, it's gnarly, it's dark. It takes you through the ringer in terms of emotions, and it is packed with moments that are huge sounding, to the point that you almost get to the point where it feels like it's not worth your time trying to count them anymore. Every single song has these huge scopes of kind of melody from the guitar work or something the vocalist is doing. He's such this visceral, angry tone that when you hear his actual singing voice, it kind of blows me away. It's an album which I just think is like, we talked about it during the review. I think they may have just made the album of their career on album number 2. Like, I can't see how they top this. This to me is a perfect album. Like, flawless, as in would not change a note. Yeah. Could not fathom it changed in any way, shape or form. I think this is about as good as this genre gets. And they managed to somehow do the Deaf Heaven thing and the Them thing and bring that together and still retain the blackened elements that Deaf Heaven decided not to do this year. And that, you know, that's their choice to be the great album for it. But they've still made an album which is commercially appealing, soulful and melodic, but retained that grit. And I think that's the balancing act is so fine. It'd be like trying to balance a 10 pence piece on a hair. You know, is that fine, and they nail it all the way through it. Diorama, the closing song, is my second favourite closing song of the year. I think it is fucking incredible. And you've got these dueling vocals between, you know, the male and the female vocals that work through it, and it is just it's jaw-dropping. It's honestly, I feel when I listen to this album that the hairs on the back of my neck go up every time, and it's still doing it to me. I get goosebumps listening to it. I think it's fucking incredible, and there was only one album that bit it out for me, and it bit it out marginally. So my number 2, and if I had to say the one listen that you have to do for 2021 this year, it's Mole and Diorama via Nuclear Blast. If you want to check it out, and please do.
Nice. And Kyle, number 2.
Pupil Slicer.
Oh, of course it is. Knew that as soon as you heard it.
Yep. Mirrors. This album is the most frantic, frenetic, fucking nuts album that came out this year. It's like Dillinger on steroids. It's just fucking insane. I introduced my friend to it, and we were listening to it in his car, and he said, I have no idea what's going on. And I'm like, that's the album you want. And I don't know. I don't get how they wrote the stuff, because I'm sat there with my guitar like, how do you even get from here to up? And yeah. So I've got no clue, but it came out perfectly, and it's the exact type of music that gets me going. And and off the back of this one album, they have gone fucking through the roof with popularity last year and carrying on into this year, and they deserve it because it's absolutely incredible. It's such a fresh take on a crazy genre that's already full of subgenres and heavy metal and everything. You know, it's a bit math, it's a bit of everything really, but mostly just fucking nuts. Just it takes a few listens to sort of get into like, oh, where's the repeat? What? But I mean, and they're really nice people as well. You follow them on Twitter and stuff, and you see them talking with the fans and all that. They're fantastic. So
yeah, she's lovely.
She really is. Yeah, absolutely.
Of it, and so humble, and apparently never takes time off, because like I said before, I think as soon as shows started closing down again, she was like, right, I'm gonna write a new album. What the fuck are you doing? No one's just out. But Knotfest is a huge get for them. Even if whether or not you like the bands that are on that's a huge audience that being exposed to.
Massive festival. So and for them to get there off one album is nuts. And well deserved, because this just absolutely, it shocked me to my core. I didn't think something like this could come out anymore. I mean, it's a bit, it's nuts. Right, that's all I'm saying.
Nice. Okay. Time has come, gentlemen.
The time has come. It's time. Just like Duncan.
Time for a number 1.
The time has Duncan. That doesn't make any sense.
No. The time has Duncan. It's wasted, is what it means. Give us your number 1, Dave.
Number 1. So my number 1 is your number 2. But Mole and Diorama is my number 1.
Nailed it.
I think there's many a reason that an album might make its way into my top 20 of the year. Sometimes is just as simple as it was an album that I listened to loads in the year, or it was the most relentlessly heavy album of the year, or it's unique in its delivery. My top album of the year usually ends up in the number one spot for another reason, and that's usually down to a kind of emotional or kind of personal connection I had with the album. And the one album that connected with me most this year was Diorama. Not only did this band deliver superior kind of songwriting and better compositional ideas, better control and a better production value than they did on their previous album, Yord, which is not an easy thing to do because that album was fantastic. But
That's great, yeah.
This album just hits me in the feels like no other in 2021. I'm a big fan of post-black metal, or black gaze as they class themselves, but every now and again a band will come along and grab this genre by the throat and just kind of lift it to the next level, and I believe that this band have done that on Diorama. It's in equal parts kind of raw, aggressive and visceral, but at the same time it's like heartfelt, uplifting and completely captivating, and I think it's that kind of juxtaposition of emotions and kind of dynamic textures that works so brilliantly well on Diorama. But before you can kind of achieve that, you have to have the musicians that can pull it off.
Yeah.
And luckily, Moll have an abundance of that. You have to have that kind of talent in the band, from the playing skills to the caliber of their songwriting. These guys have all of that. Just insanely good at what they do. And in my opinion, they've created a masterpiece here. This not only delivers the goods kind of musically and vocally, but also, as I said, emotionally as well. And that's difficult, to kind of evoke that kind of emotion. It takes something pretty special. And you could hear on Yord that they had the potential to pull it off, but on Diorama they have delivered the kind of complete package for me. This is immaculate is how I would describe it in one word. Perfect. That's my number one, Moll and Diorama. Duncan, number one.
I'm the Babe Ruth of this podcast. I called this. I called my shot as soon as I heard it. When this dropped, I think my exact words were, "This album feels like it was made for me." I stand by that even now. If ever someone could pluck the sort of sound I would have loved to have been involved with in a band and put it, like, Dave's known me for years, and Dave knows that I have interests that sway off into the synth land, and it was always my kind of dream to do something that had a kind of more, and it was before synthwave, and I'm not saying I'm a hipster and I was ahead of the curve, but like, before people were starting to do the synthwave thing, like years before that, I had an interest in like the synth sounds of the 80s. It's an era that I like grew up listening to a shitload of really, really bad pop music, and I love it. I would never change a second of it. But the synth work, the experimental stuff, the kind of stuff that Gary Newman was starting to kind of plug himself into, make things a bit darker, the kind of darker side of Depeche Mode, these elements that were starting to come through. It's like if you could take that, but you could make them like a bit more like Simtrack, if you bring some of that John Carpenter stuff in from the 80s as well, and then gravitate it into our genre and then make an album, that's Genghis Tron's dream weapon. I think you like summed up in a very nice way of how I would describe it as an immersive album. It draws you in. If you've got the time to, like, I know a lot of people are busy, but if you've got the time to sit in a dark room with a good pair of headphones and you listen to Genghis Tron, you will be transported to a different place. And that's how powerful this album is. I don't think it did them a lot of favours with a lot of hardcore fans that have been, diligently buying the same album for the last 13 years. That's not happened. Or, supporting them with all the t-shirts they've been buying. Oh, wait a second. That hasn't happened. So the right anyone has to bitch and moan that the band would flex themselves 13 years after their previous album and release something incredibly temperate and mature, I think, speaks to the entitlement of music fans the world over. Albums are not made for you. Albums are made for bands. If you happen to like them, that's great. It means they make money. Guess what? An artist can look himself, a true artist can look at himself a little bit better in the mirror if they know they made something for themselves. Dream Weapon is Genghis Tron's album for themselves. I think it is. I have listened to it to the point that I know every nuance, I know every bit where the thing's going to change. Some of the tracks are 9 minutes long, and I can tell you exactly the next bit where the synth bit's going to come in the background to lift this section up. I've dissected it within an inch of its life, and I still find, I've done the kind of clinical observation of it, the forensic examination, if you will, but I still think it's just musically, it is a fascinating, rich, rewarding album front to back. And I don't want them to change their sound. Like, I want them locked now. The only right albums like Dream Weapon from now on. That's it. New vocals, love the vocalist tone. Think it's fucking great. I think he screams once on the release, and it's kind of buried in the mix under something else he's doing. The drumming is the tits. Fucking powerhouse of a drummer. Really, really interesting stuff. And they could have went down a lazy route. They're doing mostly electronic stuff. They could have just done like drum loops and a drum machine. They probably could have got away with it. But they didn't do that. They chose to use a real drummer, and it shows. It sounds fucking great. Yeah, it is an incredible album. And I fell for it the moment I heard it. And you know what, Dave? I think I'm going to ask it to marry me. That's how much. You like the album so much, maybe you should ask him to marry you. Do you, Duncan, take Genghis Tron to be yes I do? No, it's that good for me. But I'm fully aware that its metal credentials are maybe not as powerful as some of the band's. In fact, it's probably the least metal album of everything on my list. But it tops my list because the musicianship and the ability to, very much like 9 Inch Nails, sorry Dave, will yeah, got it in finally. Again! So yeah, very much like 9 Inch Nails will craft things layered and textured, but still have punch and bite, which transcends the genre that they, might play in and make it a bit more metallic or a bit more heavy. Genghis Tron have that. They just don't utilize it a lot on this album. But you can't really question their credentials because they have albums of the most insane shit you've ever fucking heard before. I love it. I think it's fucking great. I'm glad it made some of your lists this year. It warmed my heart a great deal to see that some publications actually featured it, because when the album came out, no one was talking about it except people on YouTube like us. Tons of YouTube reviews. It is now my bucket list wish to see Genghis Tron live on the Dream Weapon tour. I need to make that happen. Yeah, love it. Did I tell you I love it? Mm-hmm. Have I made that clear? Mm-hmm. Number 1, by a ball hair over the phenomenal Mule. Kyle, the floor is now yours with your number 1. Why did you choose Genghis Tron's Dream Warrior?
Oh, it was close. I'm not going to lie.
Dream Warrior? That's Dawkin. Dream Weapon. The Dream Warriors. Jesus.
You've definitely undersold that.
Yeah. That's how you sell an album, gents. That's how you sell an album. Not this LLNN thing where Dave mysteriously mentioned a video on YouTube, which he didn't sell by putting that link. We're going to have words after this.
Hell of a segue. Nice. The fact that Green Lung are not more famous is fucking criminal, because this album was just the best one to come out this year. It really was. It gives me, this album is the only one to genuinely and repeatedly give me chills every time I listen to it. What's it called? Black Harvest. Yeah. It's the only one I spent fuckloads of money getting it into the country.
Yes. You literally did. Like that, I don't think people understand how expensive that t-shirt is.
It's fucking unbelievably. I'm not doing it again. Well, maybe once because I have to. But
yeah, you impulse purchased a t-shirt without remembering about it.
Yeah.
Like, see if I'd spent that amount of money on a t-shirt, it'd be framed.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do that. I have a spare frame in the basement. Anyway, Black Harvest by Green Lung. It's an album that's like brought forth by Black Sabbath having a baby with fucking I don't know, Led Zeppelin and Queen, and then that baby got bought up by Ghost, and it's just every song's incredible, and the re-listen rewarding is amazing. Like you always pick up something new and a different something, and I've listened to it about give or take about 1 million times. It's definitely my most listened to album of the year, and I've introduced loads of my friends to it, and they all love it too. So that's a good sign of a great album. And yeah, I can't get over it. The production's incredible. I love the fact that they broke into a church to record there. I just love that. They're like, fuck it. Where were they? I don't know, Dartmoor or something, and just decided to, fuck it. Let's see what's in here. Oh, an organ. Hey guys, do you want to record an album? Unbelievably great story for such a fantastic album. Every song is great. There's not a song I do not like on it. Of course, there's ones I like better than others, but there's not a single one I don't like. And that it's very rare for me, actually. There's a lot of albums I'm like, yeah, these songs are great, these ones are shit. But yeah. But for this one,
I may have heard that before. I don't know if you've been party to one of those reviews.
But no, more people need to get to know about Green Lung, and they need to be more famous because they're fantastic, and they need to be pushed out into the world. So yeah.
Nice.
I liked it a bit, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like, yeah. What was it called? Green Lung. I will write that down.
Trying to say that in Norway, actually, people are just like Green Lung, and then they spell lung like R-U-O-N-G. I'm like, lung with an L, and they're like, don't get it.
Green Rung.
Right, I'm like, also, I tried to tell someone, and they I can't remember what it was, some Norwegian word. I'm like, why would a band from London call themselves Green Norwegian Word? Anyway,
if it makes you feel any better where we are in the world, if you get someone in England on the phone and you have to spell out the postcode, which is F, they hear it as S.
F for are you fucking listening?
Well, as you like Foxtrot's what you should say, but fuck off is what you want to say. So
F for fuck off.
Yeah. Let's count them down, Dave.
Yeah,
okay.
Let's do it.
Here we go. So that is the top 20s. Our top 10 was, I'll start off with my number 10, Boss Colloid, Family the Smiling Thrush. Number 9 was Vorvan and Awakened. Number 8 was Cognitive and Malevolent Thoughts of a Hastened Extinction. Number 7 was King Woman Celestial Blues. Number 6 was Leprous Aphelion. Number 5 was Washed Out and Extinction. Number 4, Cannibal Corpse Violence Unimagined. Number 3, LLNN Unmaker. Number 2, Rivers of Nile The Work. And number 1 was Mole and Diorama. Duncan. Top 10.
So just to preface this by saying this is the correct top 10. Boss Colloid, Family of the Smiling Thrush, HEIRESS, Distant Fires, LLNN, Unmaker, Bummer, Dead Horse, Death Heaven, Infinite Granite, Every Time I Die, Radical, Turnstile, Glow On, King Woman, Celestial Blues, which meant my number 2 was Moll and Diorama, and number 1 was Gengistron and Dream Weapon.
Nice.
What a year for music, guys. What a year for music. Kyle.
And here I am with the correct list this year.
Oh, I see what we're doing now. It's just one-upmanship all the way along, is it?
That's what you get for going second. Number 10, Nitleaf with Den Döde Soul. Unnskyld. Excuse me.
Big Davy Soul, that's right.
Right. Number 9, Ghost, Rites of Love and Reverence. Number 8, LLNN with Unmaker. Number 7, Filth is Eternal. Love is Alive, Filth is Eternal. Number 6, Throat, Smile Less. Number 5, HEIRESS, Distant Fires. Number 4, SARIN, You Can't Go Back. Number 3, Old with Pilgrimage with an E. Both of those words. Number 2, Pupil Slicer with Mirrors. And number 1, maybe you've heard of it, I may have spoken about before, it was Green Lung Black Harvest.
Nice. So there you have it. The top 20s. Fucking hell. That was long.
Yeah, that's long. Yeah,
it's long.
just to confirm, long. Well done, Dave.
Long like my penis.
Oh, it's that late, is it?
Ooh. so tired.
Really, I couldn't tell.
Pee myself. It's just everything's wrong. Why the Jamaican accent? I don't know. No. Oh, fuck.
We
Dear.
need to go, guys. We really need to go.
Oh, man.
Jesus.
Yeah. Thank you for sticking around and listening to that whole thing.
If
If
you've
you
made
did-
it this far, thanks for sticking with it. Holy shit.
You guys are like, I've dropped 10-hour podcasts before. People listen to them and quote them back to you, so we're fine.
I drop podcasts like this for breakfast. We'll be back next month with another podcast. Probably back on the old Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Google and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
But we obviously put this one up on YouTube as a little special episode. Thanks once again for checking it out. Much appreciated. Keep checking out the reviews. We've got a ton of album reviews coming up on YouTube. So be sure to check them out. youtube.com/Metal Epidemic. And check out all the written reviews going up at metalepidemic.com. We will see you soon, or you'll hear us soon, on our next podcast.
We'll see us on Twitch, though.
Yes, you'll see us on Twitch, that's true. You'll see us on Twitch. End of January. Until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.